Welcome to Coffee and Popcorn, where we bring you the most striking stories from around the world. Before we start, I do grammatically correct the stories I share with you guys from Reddit, so things are a bit easier to digest. However, this next story was so jumbled that I had to rearrange things quite a bit so it made sense, because honestly, it was quite hard to follow. As always though, the link to the original story can be found in the comments if you want to check it out.
Me and my wife set a rule for our relationship, in that there'd be no drinking till the blackout stage. This was 2 years before we got married. When it came to the bachelor's and bachelorette party, my wife said no strippers, so I agreed. The thing is, I come to find out that they rented a private apartment and hired a stripper. At some point during the night, my wife and one of her friends, Amy, ended up in the bathroom with the stripper. I only found out about the stripper when they got home. I was annoyed, and my wife's attitude was off that day. I questioned her about it, but she said it was nothing. In regard to the stripper, I just heard that he just did his thing and left. I then overheard that one of the girls at the party, who we'll call Rachel, was super angry, so I asked my wife why that was the case. Why did she hate the stripper so much? At the time, I was thinking it was because her friend slept with him. When I eventually found out about the bathroom thing, my wife claimed that she blacked out and only remembers the sense of being in the bathroom with the stripper and Amy. The thing is, Amy gave me the play-by-play of everything that went on in the bathroom. Rachel, who was outside the bathroom pounding on the door trying to stop her, confirmed that they were in there for up to 30 minutes. Amy told me that my wife was up on the sink and the stripper was telling her to make out with my wife. In the end, my wife and the stripper ended up going at it, and Amy sat and watched. Amy promises that even though they were all drunk, my wife wasn't blacked out. When talking about the party, 3 nights before our wedding, my wife never mentioned anything about being blacked out. I feel like I was lied to and manipulated into a marriage. I feel like I've been living in a false reality. When I confronted my wife with the play-by-play, she freaked out and screamed, "No, I didn't." She threw herself onto the bed, kicking and screaming into a pillow. Eventually got up in her nightgown, threw some makeup into a bag along with some clothing, and left the house at 1 a.m. She was walking around telling me, "Well, I have to divorce you now. I can't live with you thinking that I actually did that. And I'm never going to be able to have sex with you ever again knowing this." She left me and my 3-year-old daughter at the house after finally being caught on her crap. She's holding on to the whole "I was blacked out" thing, and how she can't take responsibility for her actions. Her friends wish that they spoke up before the wedding.
This marriage was over before it even really got started. Getting drunk is not an excuse for cheating, at least not in my book. If anything, it just shows a lack of responsibility, because you shouldn't have put yourself in that position to begin with. It would have been good for her friends to let OP know, especially since they seemed so angry about what went on. Marriage isn't a joke, and marrying the wrong person can destroy your life in many ways. OP deserved the truth, so he could make an informed decision about his future. Let's dive into the comments to see what's being said.
Ninja Daku Fox says, "It's your marriage, and most people who post here know exactly what they're going to do. But let's recap. She made rules for you both to follow and broke them. Got drunk and slept with a stripper. Lied about being blackout drunk to avoid being responsible for her actions, which doesn't even make sense because her friends were. And they probably talked about it a bunch, but she just wanted to sweep it under the rug. When you called her out, instead of admitting it, she lied and tried to shift the blame, threatening to leave in order to get you to run back to her and apologize for something you both know happened. All I'm going to say is, if you choose not to leave her, you have to make her work for it, and she has to admit out loud to you everything she's done without excusing her actions. If you go running back to her, she sounds like the type of person who will see how much she can get away with, and you will be cheated on again multiple times." Reaper Ghost says, "From someone who's been lied to and cheated on a couple of times, end it now. You won't ever fully get that trust back. If she's lied for this long, she will lie again and again and again. The more times she lies and cheats, the easier it is for her. Just end it is the best advice. It may not seem logical now, but one day it will. Keep your chin up. There will be rough days ahead, but better to come after that."
This has got to be one of the worst ways to start a marriage. And from how OP's described his wife's actions, she doesn't seem trustworthy at all. Let's hope that he can get out of this marriage without too much hassle, so he can find someone worth being with.
My wife and this guy, who we'll call Ryan, broke up roughly 12 years ago.
When we started dating 7 years back, she said she talked to him occasionally. And as we progressed in our relationship, she opened up about how toxic he was and some of his red flags. I encouraged her to stop messaging him because of this, and his personality made me uncomfortable. About 5 years ago, when we were engaged, my wife approached me one day and said we couldn't contact exes anymore. I had one ex I was good friends with and was always open about that friendship with my wife. I agreed to go no contact with my ex, and she agreed to go no contact with her exes, and we got married late 2018. In November of 2021, my wife got a new phone number due to us getting a new phone plan. Earlier this year, I discovered on my son's iPad that she'd been texting with her ex, Ryan, since before she got her new number. Based on the conversations I saw, it seemed like they'd been talking a lot. I waited and thought on what to do with what I found and took time to talk with attorneys. During this time, roughly 2 months, she sent him hundreds of messages, including photos of our kids and big life updates. Eventually, I couldn't take the stress and confronted her, at which point she attempted to gaslight me and blame me, saying she couldn't talk to me about things in her life. She said she was only supporting him because he recently went to rehab, and from what I could tell, that was in late 2022, and by this point, she'd had her new phone number for over a year. She lied and said she only texted him 3 times, so I told her I'd seen hundreds of texts over the previous 2 months. She turned it on me and tried to catch me in a lie about how I found out, and said it was my fault for snooping. She called me calculated for holding this in, despite her calculating how to hide this for years. After hours of her denying it and blaming me, I eventually gave up and accepted that this isn't an emotional affair. A few weeks later, when I expressed my feelings again, she said that she didn't regret talking to him or hiding it, and again, blamed me for her having to hide it. She said that she couldn't understand how I could feel so hurt and betrayed by her, and that she had to research why I felt so hurt and betrayed. I could go into countless more details regarding this, along with many more issues over the years in which I felt like she crossed the line. I've felt trapped in our relationship due to me being a stay-at-home father. She's the breadwinner and has a very successful career in tech. She's also controlled and isolated me from my friends and family. I haven't seen most of my family in years. I haven't even told any of my family or friends about our second child who's almost 2. I'm scared and exhausted of what I feel is a very toxic relationship. I've never seen anything sexual in her messages, but this weird friendship, as she claims, is way over the line for me. Based on these lies, it has me questioning so many other suspect situations regarding her actions during our relationship. Is this an emotional affair? Am I overreacting, betraying her trust, and in the wrong like she claims?
I've got to say, one of the most triggering parts about this story is when OP's wife said they should cut contact with their ex-partners, only to start speaking with her ex. If that's not super controlling, I don't know what is. I also don't understand why it is that when people get caught cheating because there was evidence on their phone, they get upset about their partner going through their phone. The bigger issue is that OP's partner betrayed his trust, and it's likely that there would have been no other way to confirm this than by going through her phone. This doesn't seem like a healthy relationship for OP, but let's see if anyone else agreed in the comments.
Writing the LifeWave says, "She's playing with your emotions when she said she's worried about him dying. It's a lie. I got the exact same thing from my cheating ex. I got triggered when I read I couldn't speak to you about things. Because that's the same thing I got. Crazy how cheaters all have the same script. Do some reading on narcissism behaviors. I strongly suspect it's a physical affair. The no ex contact thing was her projecting. She knew she was disrespecting your marriage with her interactions with her ex back then, and set the rule. They do this to manage image and to control your behavior. Do as I say, not as I do, because the rules don't apply to them. It's a major disordered thinking and belief system, and it's toxic and damaging. Get to a lawyer, talk to at least 3. Start getting your life to a place where you're self-sufficient, and be careful on the intimacy side. STIs should be a concern too. Switchboard friend says, if this was an emotional affair, then after 2+ years, it would have surely turned physical, right? Most emotional affairs don't go for more than 6 months without transitioning to a physical one. The only caveat is opportunity and distance. Basically, if there's no possibility of being in the same room, it can't happen. That said, 2+ years would make them quite inventive in resolving that issue. Most people would move heaven and earth to meet up with their soulmate. I don't think that you're looking at an emotional affair.
What I think you're looking at is a rival for her affection that she's friend-zoned. No doubt he gives her attention and validation, and listens to her when it seems like no one else will. Look, all exes are near misses. They were good enough to date, be in a relationship with, even marry, but there was at least one fatal flaw, a reason for the relationship dissolving. It isn't an emotional affair, but it's certainly not in the interest of your relationship. If you drop the ball, or are at least perceived to have done so, he'll be there, waiting in the wings. He's not a sneak out for a one-night stand and be gone before breakfast type of problem. He's your potential replacement. Also, she's very interested to see if he's managed to overcome that one fatal flaw. You seem prepared to work for the betterment of the relationship in cutting off your exes, whereas she chose to take hers underground.
I think these comments were pretty insightful. In the midst of working on this video, OP provided an update to this story, which I'm sure you'd like to hear.
A few things I forgot to mention. I did a DNA test for both of my kids, and they're mine. I haven't done an STD test yet, but I will schedule one. This has been going on since before I was a stay-at-home dad, so that has nothing to do with her choice to cheat. Anyway, I left my wife this afternoon. I'm safe in a hotel room with only a backpack of things. We got into an argument, and a bit into it, I expressed how we have zero trust in our relationship and that I couldn't trust her after her affair. She once again denied it being an affair and said how she was feeling hurt that I'd been going through her things. She expressed that she felt violated by me going through her private belongings, but I did so because I found the suspect texts on our son's iPad and needed to see who she was texting. She said she was hurt by how I could yell at her and treat her so poorly during our last few arguments about the affair. She said that after doing all those things to her, I never felt remorse for my actions. She again claimed she never had an affair and that what she did doesn't fit the definition of an affair, and again, refused to offer up any apology to me for her complete betrayal and destruction of our marriage. She said I needed to leave, and that she doesn't want to waste any more years with me. I said, "Sounds great." And I started to pack. After a few minutes, she told me to go into a room to talk. I stepped into our daughter's room, and she said how she didn't want me to storm off without a plan and be so impulsive. I said that I don't need to explain anything to her. I have a plan, and she made it clear she didn't want me there. Once I got to the door, she said she wanted things to be peaceful and calm. I explained how I was calm and didn't yell or raise my voice at all. I shut down anything she tried to escalate. I told her that I'll contact my attorney and she can contact hers. Once I mentioned getting an attorney, she immediately slammed the door and locked it. I had about an hour-long conversation with my dad on the phone. He lives out of state. It felt liberating to freely talk with him, to hear his voice, and openly express what's been happening in my life. During the conversation, he mentioned that my brother almost died back in January during a massive storm when a huge redwood tree fell onto his house, completely totaling it, landing in his bedroom, only a few feet from his bed while he was asleep. I was shocked by this. It brought me to tears. How close my younger brother came to dying, and I hadn't even talked with him in about a year. He hasn't ever met his niece or nephew. I'm ashamed of how I allowed my wife to control my life, and how I allowed all of this to go on for so long. Thank you all for your kind comments and support. I'll try and make an update sometime in the future.
I'm really feeling for OP on this one. In regard to his wife and her doing whatever she was doing with her ex, this is an almost perfect example of how someone from outside your relationship can destroy everything you've been building and not have to suffer any of the consequences for doing so. His wife's ex will likely go on living his life, not affected by the storm he caused in the life of this couple. When you're building a life with someone, you should never put the needs of others before the needs of your partner or family. Hopefully, OP can now reconnect with his family. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Coffee and Popcorn, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.